Hey, hi, hello. I've been thinking about the response I'd get if I was to go back to a time before the internet existed and told someone there was a type of homemade video where people film themselves divulging that they have no friends, no social life, and openly dissecting the possible reasons for that, then upload it to a public space where absolutely anyone in the world could see it. I wonder how people would react. Today we're talking about the rise of I have no friends videos. But before we get into it, here are some videos that I made recently, as well as my Instagram. And if you're watching this video and at any point you think, hey, this isn't terrible, consider giving it a like and subscribing to my channel because it really does help me out. So these I have no friends videos, maybe you've gone down the rabbit hole like I have, because once you watch one, the YouTube algorithm kind of keeps suggesting them to you, or maybe you have no idea what I'm talking about. Many of these videos seem quite off the cuff and unplanned. Some people recording handheld on their phones or in their cars. A lot of them are raw and unedited, just following the person's stream of consciousness. To me, they almost feel like a confessional. I get the sense that for some of these people, they're absolutely at their wits' end and overwhelmed with loneliness. So the video feels like a purging of their thoughts and feelings almost. The person usually begins with how old they are and that they have no friends, and then tells the audience the story of how they've got into the position they're in today. I'd say that most of the people who make these videos are not established YouTubers with large followings. Sometimes the person will have a few miscellaneous videos on their channel before this one. Other times their I have no friends video is their first video. For example, Josh Hitty, whose first YouTube post was 33 years old, I have no friends, is it social anxiety? It had hundreds of thousands of views within the first week. Myra West's case is maybe the most viral. Her video is called 21 years old, I have no friends, with over 6 million views. Camelot331 was already an established YouTuber when he posted, I'm 31 years old and have no friends, emotional, I'm sorry. And there's loads more of this type of video all over YouTube with varying amount of views. Some of the common themes in these videos are of course loneliness, vulnerability, self-reflection, mental health, shame and self-criticism. Something I've noticed is that the creators of these videos seem to be quite self-aware. Obviously I'm judging this from a few minutes I've seen of them on the internet. I don't actually know them, so who really knows? But it's interesting because I don't really see many of them saying things like everyone hates me or everyone's against me. It's usually more about them, and they believe it's something about the way that they're interacting with others. The most commonly mentioned reason for having no friends is probably social anxiety, but people also speculate about depression, adverse childhood experiences, and even autism. Why do people make these videos? I've noticed that some people think that these videos are disingenuous and people upload them just to get views. And right, I don't know if this is an unpopular take. I'm sure you little shits will tell me if it is. But like, why do people care so much about other people doing things for views? Like, it's not really that big a deal, is it? It doesn't really affect anyone's life or have any real life consequences. People absolutely do things online for attention, but can we just let them? I'm tired. If people are really making up sad and detailed life stories to get a bit of attention, honey, you can have the attention. But like I said earlier, listening to these people, I really do get the sense that most of them are at their wits' end. I don't know if they would describe their videos as a last resort, but that's what it kind of feels like to me as a viewer. It feels like they're saying, I've tried everything, I'm out of options, I'm starving for human connection, and I need some help on how to make friends. To me, these videos feel a little bit like putting a message in a bottle and sending it out to sea. Like they're throwing their feelings into the internet void, but they don't really know if anyone's gonna see it. I also think it's really interesting that a lot of the people I've watched have mentioned that they have romantic partners, or they have done in the past, but obviously the relationships they're struggling to build are friendships. And I wonder if this was the other way around, if the person was struggling with romance and not with friendships, they would bother making a video about it. In our culture, I think it's a lot more acceptable to be struggling with romance than it is to be struggling with friendships. And that's not to say that struggling with romance is acceptable, because it's kind of not. Single people get shit on all the time. But in my opinion, it's more acceptable than it is to be struggling with friendships. Like, think of all the movies and songs and books and magazines and blogs that are centered on being unlucky in love. I think in some cases it's almost seen as a rite of passage, but I don't really see the media talking about friendships in the same way. Friendships are seen as something you automatically have. We all have. Everyone has friends, right? And if you don't, then boy oh boy, there must be something wrong with you. The online disinhibition effect is a psychological theory referring to the way that people act when on the internet. You know that feeling you get when you can be a little bit more honest with someone when messaging them as opposed to talking face to face? Or when you go into a chat room full of strangers and feel safe divulging your deepest, darkest secrets to them? Or when you post a cryptic and long-winded status about a situation with your ex to your 500 Facebook friends, when you definitely wouldn't discuss this with them all individually in person? These are all examples of online disinhibition. And there's two types, benign and toxic. The outcome of benign online disinhibition is pro-social behaviour, meaning behaviour that helps people or has a positive impact, or at least has that intention behind it. Benign online disinhibition is probably what causes people to create I have no friends videos. People are trying to find a way to connect with others. They're trying to express their thoughts and feelings in a non-destructive way. They're trying to make other people struggling with loneliness know that they're not alone. And the psychological absence of restraint that we feel in online spaces provides an opportunity for these things to happen more easily. But the outcome of the other type, toxic online disinhibition, is antisocial behaviour, meaning trolling, cyberbullying, maybe even cancel culture in some cases. And while most of these I have no friends videos have positive audience responses, there have been some that haven't. Camelot 331's video prompted two other creators, Review Tech USA and Nintendo Prime, to make similar videos about their experience in solidarity. Now, if you're anything like me, what you see is three men in their 30s doing something quite unique and important, being vulnerable and talking about their feelings. Not everyone viewed this as positively though, and these videos sparked some criticism from viewers who thought this was a case of entitled YouTubers wallowing in self-pity. I think this is an example of toxic online disinhibition on the viewer's part. I also think the fact that these three men already had established followings, for some reason people interpreted this as meaning their vulnerability must be fake, which is interesting. It's like people thought their vulnerability was a tactical performance. And yeah, there's obviously going to be some people, some content creators that use vulnerability as a strategy or for manipulation, but I'm not sure why we were so quick to assume that this is what these three men were doing. There are a few things that contribute to online disinhibition being a thing. Anonymity, so maybe through picking a random username and stuff like that, but also just being in a space where you know it's unlikely that anyone from your real life is gonna find you there. Invisibility, so not posting images or videos of yourself. Asynchronicity, which is a really interesting one. It's the type of communication where a message is sent without the expectation of an immediate reply, kind of how traditional emailing works as opposed to a phone call, for example. Solipsistic introjection, another interesting one. It's this phenomenon of how in cyberspace, when reading a tweet or a message, we're reading it in our heads and assign a voice and character to the other person in our heads, and it could be totally off base from their actual voice or character. Dissociative imagination, which refers to how some people think of the internet as like a game, and when they log out, they kind of leave all their actions behind. It's kind of like a cognitive dissonance. And minimization of status and authority. So this idea that we're all equals on the internet and your social ranking offline really holds no relevance. And research seems to suggest that people feel more comfortable disclosing personal information about themselves online when some of these factors are present, as well as a lack of eye contact. If we're thinking about the people who have made an I have no friends video, I definitely think anonymity plays a huge part. And you might be thinking, well, they're literally filming their face and uploading it publicly. A lot of times their usernames are the real names as well. So I think this would make them visible, yes, but there's still a feeling of anonymity to it. Like imagine uploading a video to YouTube when you have like 0 subscribers. There's a good chance that no one from your real life is actually going to see it unless they're searching for it. Lack of eye contact, I'm sure, had a huge impact on the creator's ability to open up and be vulnerable on camera. I mean, if we think about regular face-to-face communication, we often avoid eye contact if we're like having to tell someone something or confront someone about something. I also think that asynchronicity is a big factor. Like I've actually heard some of the creators say that after uploading the video, they kind of forgot about it and went about their life as usual. And it wasn't until they logged back in that they noticed the attention. And I think that knowing this in advance about YouTube, that it is a space where you can kind of drop off a video and then go away and forget about it. Probably influence their disinhibition. Now we've talked about why people make these videos. Let's talk about why we watch them. Research shows that we watch YouTube for a lot of the same reasons we watch television, but we're also drawn to YouTube for its distinctly social aspect. I think that when we log on to YouTube, we are subconsciously looking for social connections, and this could be through simply watching a YouTube video and leaving a comment or subscribing to somebody. Even if that person has no idea that you exist, it can feel very connective to us. But sometimes when the connection feels very strong and we know that the internet is pretty simple to use, it can lead to incredible group efforts like signing petitions or donating to GoFundMes or making videos that we feel are special go viral. Like I said earlier, I have noticed that regular people without an established following are more likely to be seen as genuine by the audience and get a positive response. And maybe this is because we as viewers find them more relatable. Even if we can't relate to the exact situation that they're in, it feels like there could be more common ground between us and a regular person as opposed to a YouTuber. I think we offer empathy more readily when the person is closer in proximity to us, which is just a very human thing. I don't think it should be demonized too much. It's just the uncomfortable truth. So I think our desire for social connection and the creator's relatability are definitely factors in why I Have No Friends videos are quite popular. I also think that shame is a factor in this. As humans, it's quite psychologically powerful for us to name things and say things out loud. If you've ever gone to therapy, they might have made you do that. And when we feel unable to name our experiences, hearing someone else do it for us can be almost as powerful, I think. That's one of the reasons we love art so much. And since YouTube is formatted in the way that it is, hearing someone name their own difficult experience can encourage us to name ours as well. There was a small study done on a bunch of subscribers from a certain YouTube channel which analysed their reasons for self-disclosures within their community. They found that subscribers chose to disclose a variety of mental health experiences to put language to them and own them in a public space. They also found these disclosures would contain advice and encourage others to create their own coping mechanisms. I think this research is probably also applicable to why we interact with I Have No Friends videos. Brene Brown, who is a renowned researcher and thought leader in the field of human emotion, says that the less we talk about shame, the more we have it. She sprung to notoriety from her TED talk on vulnerability and then one on shame. Both topics I think are heavily linked to this video. I highly recommend you giving them a watch. There is huge power in naming what you're feeling and owning your shame. I think that's why we connect so much with these videos. It's like, finally, someone's talking about it, right? Loneliness, having no friends. Someone is putting words to an experience that we can relate to and have great shame over. And this brings me to the updates. A lot of these creators make follow-up videos, and a commonality I noticed in these update videos was that a lot of them experienced moments of regret and thought about deleting their initial video. This is actually called a vulnerability hangover, a term coined by Brene Brown, basically referring to that feeling of embarrassment or anxiety that we get after opening up a little bit. But Brene Brown says that this is actually good for us. Being vulnerable can feel scary and icky and awkward, but it is how we create true intimacy with other people. I've just got out the shower, my hair's wet, I've got a cup of tea. I'm trying something with the lights, okay? I'm trying something. Am I allowed to try something? Is that okay with you? When I was thinking on how to approach this video, I was intellectualizing it. Like, I was on Google Scholar like there was no tomorrow. Like, I wanted to know the studies. I wanted to know the academic theories around it. I wanted to know what Brene Brown thought about it. And there's nothing wrong with those things. I just think it's funny that I was trying to intellectualize a topic about vulnerability and shame when that's quite, I don't know, you don't need big academic words or arguments to talk about that. And that's why I wanted to put this section in the video. I wanted to talk about shame and stuff. I kind of struggle connecting with people. I always struggled to initially make friends with people but also maintain friendships. In my life there's definitely been people that haven't liked me. There's definitely been times where I've been a bit of an asshole and that's why people haven't liked me. But I think most of the time I don't think it's that people dislike me. I just think it's that people, I don't know, I don't seem to make the same deep, intimate bonds and connections with people as like I hear everybody else talking about. And this is actually not in a romantic setting, this is specifically in a friendship kind of setting. It's almost like I'm the two opposites. It's like I connect really, really well in a romantic setting, and then I struggle to connect in a friendship setting. It's really weird. For a long time, I don't know, I felt shame about that, I felt embarrassed about that. I felt like by the time I was in my 20s I should have had a firm group of people around me that were like my friendship group. I don't really have that. I kind of alluded to this earlier, but I struggle a lot with how friendships are portrayed in media and in fiction and stuff. If you were socialized as a girl, you will know the phrase friends are forever, boys are whatever. It was a classic, a 90s 2000s classic. And so this idea of friends lasting forever, and I don't know, particularly with female friendship, I think, or maybe not particularly with, I guess it's just that's what I've been focusing on when I've been consuming media, but it's just portrayed as these incredible everlasting bonds that you have with other women. I really relate to what autistic people talk about. They call it masking. Let me actually Google the actual definition of masking. Masking, or compensating, is a social survival strategy. It can include behaviours like forcing eye contact, imitating facial expressions, mimicking gestures, and they have to invest a lot of time and energy in trying to pass as neurotypical. So people might learn social cues, observe social interactions between people around them, practice appearing interested or relaxed, adjust the tone of voice to match other people's vocal patterns. It's this kind of stuff and lots more, and I 100% relate to that. I don't think I'm autistic. I'm not diagnosed as autistic. I think for me it's definitely more of a mental health related thing. I don't think I am autistic, but it's just interesting that I relate so hardcore on that specific thing. When I watched Brene Brown's TED Talk on vulnerability, and I was like, Brene, thanks, I hate it. How am I supposed to live, laugh, love in these conditions, Brene? Expecting me to be vulnerable, to build connections? And I realised that that's my problem. I have a really hard time being vulnerable in a lot of social situations with a lot of different people. And to my therapist last year, I actually described this as, and some of you are going to know exactly what I mean and you're going to be like, yes, some of you won't understand, but I described having relationships with other people as like you're getting into a shower and it's lukewarm and everything's fine, and then slowly and steadily it starts to heat up, and eventually the shower gets so hot, it's so scorching hot, you cannot withstand it anymore and you have to jump out of the shower. That's how I feel about intimacy with people. That's hard to acknowledge because it's hard to have that level of insight about yourself, but it's also hard to acknowledge and hard to say because there's a lot of shame in that. That makes me feel weird. That makes me feel like there's something wrong with me, like I'm on some level broken or unfixable. It makes me feel not like the other girls. That was a joke, but like it makes me feel like I'm not normal. And this is where this book comes in that I'm reading at the moment. I'm reading this book, Attached. You may have heard of it. I think this should be standard reading. Once you turn 18, everyone in the world should get a copy of Attached. The front cover says, Attached. Are you anxious, avoidant or secure? How the science of adult attachment can help you find and keep love. This book is heavily based on romantic relationships, but let me just talk about this for a second. Everyone has an attachment style, and the main three are anxious, avoidant and secure. And your attachment style is basically created in the first few years of your life, and it's very much developed off of how your parents or your caregivers treat you. And so people with a secure attachment, when they grow up and grow into adults, they can securely attach to people. And then obviously people who are anxious or avoidant, things happened in their early years to make them attach anxiously, which as you can imagine, that's like really being preoccupied that people are going to leave you and stuff, or it can make you be avoidant, which is you want to keep love at sort of like an arm's length away. There's also a fourth attachment style, but it's not as common, not to be quirky, that person, but the fourth attachment style is disorganized attachment, which is kind of when you flit between the two, anxious and avoidant, and that's what I have. Can I get an F in the chat? Ladies with disorganized attachment styles. Yes, queen. As I said, I've been in therapy and I've learned about my attachment style and why I have this attachment style and why I have this intense desire for connection, because I want to be close to people. That's the thing, I really do. I want to have relationships with people and friendships with people, but it's like the shower analogy that I used. When I get close, when the water warms up, when I get intimate, I don't like it and I want to run a million miles away. The good news that I'm learning is that you can work on your attachment style and you can change it, and you can heal from attachment injuries that you had as a child. And so that's kind of a lot of what I was doing last year in therapy and what I'm continuing to do on my own. I think, well, I know, because the science is on my side. I know that in time, if I keep working on it, it will get better. And I think there's a level of like ownership and responsibility that you can take for your own healing and your own self-development. Like, I know my attachment style now. I've talked through some things that happened in childhood and I can take ownership of these things, and I know these things have been massive factors in reasons why I've struggled to connect with people. But I kind of alluded to this earlier as well. Our culture kind of, I don't know, puts this thing in our heads that if you don't have any friends, you are the problem. Like, a common thing I hear all the time on social media is like, when talking about influencers, celebrities, people are like, well, who's the common denominator? Like, they're the common denominator. Like, if everyone around them is leaving them, if all their relationships are breaking down, they're the common denominator, they're the problem. And like I said, there is a level of responsibility and ownership you have to take over your life and your decisions, but there's also, on the flip side, that's very shameful. That creates a lot of shame, like telling someone that because everyone in your life has left you, you are the problem. That's quite overwhelming. Luckily no one's ever said that to me quite so directly, but these are things that I hear on the internet. We obviously don't want to get to a place where we think, I'm never in the wrong, I've never had any part to play in why relationships have broken down. We don't want to get to that place, because that's quite a self-serving and arrogant place to be. If I'm honest, I think that a lot of us who struggle in relationships are quite self-critical and quite self-aware anyway, so I really doubt that we're gonna go to that extreme. So I think for us it's about taking responsibility, but also admitting the shame that we have. We are not broken. There's not something abnormal about us. We are just experiencing unique challenges at the moment. We can use the internet to connect with other people who are going through similar things, and I think that's positive. I think that's all that I've got to say, if I'm honest. Hope you like the lights. So as we're approaching the end of this video, you might be asking yourself, should people be open and vulnerable online? Is it normal? Is it healthy? And I would say, great questions, I have no idea. But what I've learned from Brene Brown is that the people that are living wholehearted, fulfilling lives with connected and intimate relationships are the people that lean into vulnerability, not the people that pervasively lean away from it. Vulnerability is essential for friendships. Gross. I think there's this automatic assumption that digital connection is worse than or less than face-to-face connection, and while I think there's definitely truth in that assumption, which has come to light as we've connected through screens during the pandemic, I also think that this assumption is not one size fits all. If we downplay the significance of online connection, we're minimizing all the positives that have come out of things like I have no friends videos, all of the people who felt their loneliness lift momentarily while watching, or the people who who commented their experience and received supportive comments back, or the creators themselves who had a moment of catharsis followed by encouragement from all around the world. We're at a point with the internet where we can never go back now. You can make the decision for yourself to quit social media, but in society at large, it's become such a massive part of our lives that we just have to find a way to live with it. For a lot of millennials and Gen Zers, we've grown up with the internet being a safe haven for us to escape to. Sometimes we're in seasons of our lives where digital connection is all we have. So I don't think its importance should be understated, but, and this is a big but, we do need to be mindful of how we're using the internet. There was a study that showed compensatory internet use in people with social anxiety may actually make their anxiety worse. So I don't think it should be used as a permanent substitute for human connection and a way to tap out of life. But I do think it can be a necessary supplement while you're building up your offline relationships. And if I'm honest, I don't really see the creators of these I Have No Friends videos foregoing real life connections in favour of online ones. It's quite obvious to me that these creators are truly invested in developing themselves, and that's why the viewers love the updates so much. Brene Brown also says that vulnerability without boundaries isn't vulnerability. I think that this is a really essential component when thinking about sharing things on the internet. The term oversharing seems to get used a lot online, and I think when learning about the importance of vulnerability, there's a temptation to say that oversharing doesn't exist. But there does seem to be a difference between being vulnerable and trauma dumping, or getting into details with people that you've built up no trust with. Brene suggests asking yourself these questions when wanting to open up. Why am I sharing this? What outcome am I hoping for? What emotions am I experiencing? Do my intentions align with my values? Is there an outcome, response, or lack of response that will hurt my feelings? Is this sharing the service of connection? Am I genuinely asking the people in my life for what I need? I think these questions are really helpful both in real life and online. Most of the I Have No Friends videos that I've seen, I don't think fall into the oversharing category. I think that they are magnificent and vulnerable, and I'm so glad that the creators chose to share them. Brene Brown says that the antidote to shame is empathy. When we share our shame with someone and we're met with kindness and understanding and empathy, shame can't survive in those conditions. And I think that that is exactly what we're seeing with the interactions around I Have No Friends videos. Thanks for watching everyone. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe. Consider sharing the video if you think other people will enjoy it, and I will see you next time. Bye! The outcome of benign online... Why do I keep wanting to say social? But in my opinion, it's more acceptable to be struggling with friendships